when a government gets too big, it will oppress people. And when a government gets too big, it will also get in bed with business. And that's not a free market, that's corporatism. So I imagine you're here tonight because you, like me, believe in the founding ideals of our country. And unfortunately, that's been under attack. It's been from both parties. You can't really say it's one or the other. Unfortunately, government in general has been oppressing us. But as Americans, we faced this sort of adversity before, and it really was the catalyst for the founding of our country. Our founding fathers faced a great deal of adversity from the British government, and you'd really be surprised about how similar the circumstances are then to what they are now. Actually, the colonists, the original Boston Tea Party for them, was really about fighting against a corporate bailout. What was happening when the Tea Act was passed in 1773 was that the British government had, was basically in bed with the East India Tea Company. And what was happening was they were going bankrupt. So the British government said, okay, we'll give you a government-sponsored monopoly. We'll make sure that you are the only company allowed to import tea to the colonists. Now, they knew, the British government that is, that the colonists had been smuggling tea to the colonies. So what they did was they said, okay, we're going to make sure that the East India tea, while it'll be taxed, we'll make sure that it's cheaper than the tea they can get smuggled in, because as everyone knows, people kind of tend to fall for the free money schemes. I mean, think about cash for clunkers. People think what the government gives us is free. Not the case, but the colonists recognized this. They said, well, wait a minute. It's not right for the government to be forcing us to buy this one product and they're taxing us without representation, which is, of course, one of the big themes of the American Revolution. So the colonists realized this. They said, wait, this isn't right. The government shouldn't be doing this. And actually, the Boston Tea Party is interesting because there were tons of ships coming from Great Britain trying to bring this tea to the colonies. Actually, around the same time in 1773, ships went to Charleston, South Carolina, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and New York City. And the colonists successfully got them to leave. But Governor Hutchinson in Massachusetts had been really embattled politically. He faced a lot of adversity from the Boston colonists, specifically Sam Adams and the Sons of Liberty. And he said no. He decided to try to make a bold political statement. And he said, no, I'm going to make sure that this tea comes ashore. And what he did actually was breaking away from British legal precedent, because what was supposed to be happening was if a ship was in port for more than 20 days and the goods weren't unloaded, it was supposed to go back to where it came from. So Governor Hutchinson said, no, I'm going to circumvent that law and make sure it still comes ashore and that we tax it. Now, the colonists said, well, this isn't right. We can't allow this to happen. And that is exactly why Sam Adams and the Sons of Liberty decided, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. And they did what they did with the Boston Tea Party. And unfortunately, I think that the way we're taught it in a politically correct sort of sense, at least the way I learned it in the Massachusetts public school, was that it was just this angry, chaotic mob that was mad about the amount of money that they were being charged for the tea. But philosophically, I think it goes far beyond that. It wasn't about the money, because it was actually less than the tea they could smuggle. I think it was a lot more principled than we're taught in school. And I think that rings true today with what we're being called by the politicians. And it's on the left, but it's also a little bit on the right too. They're very intimidated by the idea of the citizens movement. And the exact same thing happened with our founding fathers. It was a citizens movement, and the establishment was not happy with the fact that they were being challenged. Nancy Pelosi and Barbara Boxer have been saying we're, an angry mob. They also have been calling us well-dressed, but I don't really see anyone here in Brooks Brothers suits. Not so sure what she's seeing, but it's cute, trying to pretend that everyone on the right is rich and everyone on the left is poor. That's always funny when they try to do that. But I think we're facing a very similar situation today in terms of seeing the establishment and seeing the citizens and seeing the disconnect between the two. And that's exactly why I think it's important that we look to history, because lots of things really do repeat themselves, not exactly circumstantially, but I do think that the nature of power really remains the same. When a government gets too big, it will oppress people, and when a government gets too big, it will also get in bed with business, and that's not a free market, that's corporatism. And unfortunately, people on the left say, oh, well, capitalism is what's allowing all these corporations to go crazy and all the big banks. No, it's government. Government is the one bailing them out with our money. It's not capitalism that's the problem. And the exact same thing happened when our country was founded, just years before. So there's something to be said about the nature of government and what happens when government doesn't regulate itself. It's not about regulating business, it's about preventing government from choosing business over the people. Our founding fathers faced the exact same thing. We're facing it now, and I think it's important that we draw from their understanding celebrating what they did, because what they did took a lot of bravery. They set an entirely new precedent with the Declaration of Independence and with the Constitution. They really had a revolution. All we need today is to have a restoration of those principles. So we need to look at them, value them, and make sure that they're part of the discourse when we talk about politics, because it's very, very important. So I just encourage you, look to history. It's history that inspired me, and I think it's something that we really need to keep in mind as we continue fighting these battles. Thank you.
Yeah, back up.